Property Tribes is turning our spotlight onto portfolio landlords, and I'm joined by Gavin from Shawbrook Bank. And Gavin, I think this is a really interesting topic because if we look at how the PRA defines a portfolio landlord, it's 4 properties or more, and then obviously the small landlord is 3 properties or less. And we're interested to explore this topic a little bit with you because I think the gap between the small landlord and the portfolio landlord is definitely widening. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different reasons. Being the PRA is one of them, where they are, and banks and lenders are look to put them into the 2 categories. There's also, with regards to a lot of cost and changes, maybe it tax, licensing, all the variances that are involved in the investor journey at the moment. Actually, is it worthwhile being just a smaller portfolio landlord now, so 3 or less mortgage properties, for example, when actually a bigger portfolio will probably perform better and maybe more efficient in a different structure, maybe an incorporation, limited structure, SPVs. So there is a lot going on that point, but I think it's more professional and it's more geared to a more sort of almost like a business now for a portfolio investor, I would say.
Definitely, and from Shawbrook Bank's perspective, you work with a lot of portfolio landlords, and you really like that client, that kind of client profile, and you have a lot of products to support them in growing further, don't you?
Yeah, we are very much part of the journey piece, and we've talked about that a lot recently. About how we can help fund the journey, not just a couple of properties funding. We want to help support portfolios. We can either look to refinance larger portfolios, help with the incorporation piece, but also just grow with clients as they build their journey as well. We've just released a recent customer appetite statement, so we can meet a client earlier on in their journey and actually just show our sort of willingness and understanding of their project to maybe look to fund that for future purposes as well.
Now we're in a project that's been undertaken by one of your clients, who is obviously a portfolio landlord. You know, the small landlord, as you rightly said, maybe have 2 or 3 bog standard buy-to-lets. When we get into the portfolio landlord realm, then we start to see properties like this, where the landlord has taken it back to brick and then really created a very, very high quality product. And I think that's another differentiator, that the portfolio landlord, obviously more experienced, but is willing to take on perhaps higher risk, higher reward projects than just sitting on, you know, single occupancy buy-to-let.
Yeah, I think it's part of the journey, right? Everyone starts small. Yourself, myself, with property investors, we always start with a sort of smaller property, the easier property, so to speak, and then you sort of, as you grow older in that journey, you look to ways of maximising revenue as well. And I think more landlords, with the changes, with the tax situation, you are having to create value, and actually you need to buy smart. You need to create the value smartly, work to a budget, work to a timescale, and actually create a product that is viable to be income generating for years to come. And I think you'll see that in the type of properties we're at today. You're seeing it more in the sort of quality of portfolios that are out there from landlords as well, and the ones that maybe are sort of looking at it now thinking probably the stock is a bit tired and maybe it is time to sort of step away and maybe let sort of a newer generation come through with their sort of investing in them properties and portfolios.
Just give us a few insights at how Shawbrook assess a portfolio landlord, because it's different when you've got 4 or more properties. And also, do you kind of tend to build much closer relationships with those kind of clients and be on a longer kind of journey with them because you understand where they want to get?
Yeah, it's interesting because at Shawbrook, the average client that we meet does have 4 or more properties, so we didn't actually set the rule in there. It was just pure fluke, to be honest with you. So it is 4 or more mortgage properties. The PRA look at it and have created an underwriting standard that banks must sort of implement in their process, and part of that is affordability stressing portfolios, understanding it as a business rather than a hobby. And I think anything less than the 4 is more of a hobby landlord now. The bank is evolving and changing as well with that process to, like I said earlier, to understand that client and what their requirements are. So actually to be able to meet the clients early on in their journey and offer some support, understand the team around them, have they getting the right tax advice, have they got the right team with regards to build, strip outs, etc., which we've seen today. That's the key elements. I always say it, and every time we meet up, it's all about the right team, having the right power team around you.
I totally agree with you, and I think that's one of the key things, as you've indicated, that would help a small landlord grow into a portfolio landlord, having that support, but also understanding the kind of products and tools that are out there to help them grow, such as bridging finance, which I don't think we talk about enough, and that it's a tool there that landlords can dip into that toolbox and reach for on a project like this that we're standing in today, where they can really make some big capital uplift.
Yeah, I mean, bridging finance has probably evolved just as much as landlords has. Smart investors are using it correctly and for the right reasons. I think it had some bad press previously. I think now people are using it as a tool in their funding journey to actually, it's a cheaper option. You get to create the product and you end up with a longer term solution. And if you can do that through the offering that we have, for example, you can do short term to term or bridge to let, however you want to do it. And I think that's an option. There's 400 bridging lenders out there at the moment. The product's arrived, the market is liquid. It's a good time for landlords.
So Gavin, in your role at Shawbrook, you do meet a lot of portfolio landlords, and I'm sure, like me, you find them very inspiring, some of the things they're doing. Do you notice any common traits about how they've grown their business or how they view their business?
Yeah, I think the most common thing I'm seeing now is people are adding value. And that is either through refurbing property just to flip it or sell it, refurbing property to create a HMO, create a high yielding property to hold as stock. You're seeing that journey evolve, and I think you'll continue to see that. There's lots of landlords looking at different high yielding models, be it holiday lets, service apartments and so on. So as anything, there's landlords are always on the front foot and ever looking for not to create just yields but good quality accommodation as well, and to embrace probably a lot more regulation going forward. There's a few more changes this year with tenant fees, etc., but also just to moving along in their own journey.
I think one thing I've noticed is that portfolio landlord is always looking to raise their game, and they do share a common desire to put the tenant at the heart of everything they do, and I think that is so important, and I know that Shawbrook recognises that as part of being, a successful project.
Yeah, I think we almost have to sort of move away from the word tenant now and probably look at either client is probably a good way of looking at it. Yeah, in theory they are a tenant. I think there's a lot more favourable properties for tenants now. The standards are amazing. We are proud to support people of this sort of standard as well, and to continue to fund their journeys. But I think the actual landlords and the investors are seeing them more as a client now rather than a tenant.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for sharing your views on what makes a really successful portfolio landlord. And as always, Gavin, many thanks to Shawbrook Bank for their support of property tribes and our community and helping maintain it as a free-to-use community resource. I know that you at Shawbrook are very passionate about education and helping and informing landlords and investors always to move forward.
Absolute pleasure, and I'd just like to say that I think it's an amazing job that you guys are doing with the new Smart Landlord initiative as well.
Thank you. Well, that's very kind of you to say. And stay tuned. We're going to have more portfolio landlord interviews coming up. So keep tuning in to propertytribes.com.